Hello everyone and welcome to It Goes Off. It's wrap of the round time, and after round 10, Grantley Bernard, the Sydney Kings, no longer can we say they are pretenders. They look like the real deal. They're in the top four, coming off a spectacular win over the New Zealand Breakers.
Big win, and I think anyone who wants to tag them as the Violet Crumbles should probably think again. I think if there's any crumbling, it looks like it might be a little further west in Adelaide.
No, I think the Sydney Kings have well and truly rid of themselves of the Violet Crumble tag that they had many years ago. But Grantley, it was a action-packed round 10. Talk us through all the winners and losers.
Well, it started off on Friday night out in Perth. The Wildcats are the form team. They beat the Wollongong Hawks 80-68. Jesse Wagstaff had 20 points and 7 rebounds. The Wildcats in this game out-rebounded the Hawks 53-25. They had 24 second chance points, and they finished it off with a 25-13 fourth quarter. For the Hawks, Lance Hurdle had 17 points and Oscar Foreman had 17 points and 7 rebounds. The Sydney Kings, as we mentioned, beat the New Zealand Breakers 75-62. That's a big win for the Kings. Corin Henry had 29 points. The Kings were 7 of 14 on three-point shooting, which is pretty hot. For the Breakers, CJ Bruton wound back the clock a little, and he finished with 18 points. The Townsville Crocodiles, 85, stole one from the Melbourne Tigers, 84. Gary Irvin with 26 points. Luke Neville, 26 points on 10 of 14 field goals. The Crocs went 25-18 in the fourth quarter here to get up over the top of the Tigers. Peter Crawford with the game-winning free throws with 14 seconds left. The Tigers had a play at the end of regulation but could not get a shot off. Finally, the closest game of the weekend, if you count regulation. The Adelaide 36-85 lost to the Perth Wildcats 91 in overtime. Daniel Johnson with 23 points for the Sixers, who shot just 2 of 13 on three-point field goal attempts for the game. The Wildcats, Sean Redditch came up big with 20 points and 8 rebounds. The Wildcats got back into this one in the fourth quarter, outscoring Adelaide 26-15 down the stretch.
And it was Kevin Lish in that overtime period that really took things into his own hands. Scored 9 of the 14 points in overtime for the Perth Wildcats came on his very hot hand, and he is just one of those players that steps up and is prepared to take that responsibility when the game's on the line. But also, we saw the Adelaide 36ers continuing their slide now. It's getting to a point where the Tom-Toms are beating in Adelaide, and a lot of pressure on the players and, more importantly, the coaching staff.
Yeah, I think so. They've lost 3 in a row now, and they're down to 5-6 win-loss record. So probably work to be done, I think, is a fair thing to say.
And Grantley, Michael Dunnigan, we saw the debut of him a double weekend, and he looks like he's going to be a player. Now, he's only here probably on a short-term basis until Matty Knight comes back, but he looks very much like a quality player that you'd love to see around the NBL for some time.
He certainly, what would you say, announced his presence with authority. He had 19 points on 8 of 11 shooting and the go-ahead basket against Wollongong. And then against Adelaide came out with 16 points and 13 rebounds. Didn't shoot the ball as well against Adelaide, but yeah, he's done pretty well in his first 2 games. And probably a few people in Adelaide might be asking if we've just cut CJ Massingale.
Yes.
Hello. Why weren't we looking at this guy?
Well, that is possibly a very good question, Grantley, but the Adelaide 36 is in a bit of a funk, as are the Melbourne Tigers, just casting one away. But let's take a look at the NBL table. And at the top of the table, it's the Perth Wildcats at 8-3. They're on a 5-game winning streak. The New Zealand Breakers at 8-3 dropped one against the Sydney Kings, but no doubting their quality. The Wollongong Hawks 7-3, going through just a nervous period, you might say. The Sydney Kings at 8-5 with a bullet. Unbelievable result against the New Zealand Breakers. They just keep on keeping on. The Adelaide 36ers, as we mentioned, lost 3 in a row now, Grantley, at 5-6. They're on the outside looking in, as are the Cairns Taipans at 4-6. The Melbourne Tigers, they are searching for miracles if they expect to make the playoffs at 2.
Still make the playoffs, you think?
That's not beyond them just yet. I'm not prepared to put a line through them yet, even though a heartbreaking loss to the Townsville Crocs. And the bottom of the table, Townsville Crocs, on a 2-game win streak. And I might add as well, Luke Neville, it could be the saviour for the Townsville Crocs. His game against the Melbourne Tigers was, given that it was only his second game, played some quality minutes and had an inside presence both offensively and defensively. And for the life of me, I don't understand why he hasn't stuck anywhere. You know, he's with the Melbourne Tigers for a little while, then he went to the Perth Wildcats, and I know he went overseas and tried out with the NBA, but he is a quality player, and I'm sure the Townsville Crocs on early form would be hoping that he's a long-term player for them.
I think they would. I think the problem NBL teams have in trying to keep a Luke Neville is that he's a 7-footer.
Yep.
He's always going to get an opportunity somewhere around the world. How much he makes of that opportunity is up to him.
Yes, and we wish him well, and the Townsville Crocs, who look like they've got their act together, certainly compared to what they were at the start of the season. But that's all we have time for on this week's show. Don't forget to check it out. Check out the Ticket Off section later in the week, where we have a look at some of the major issues going on around the NBL competition. And as we do every week, we need to pay thanks to those that support this great game. And it all starts off with the naming rights sponsor, iiNet.
Connect better.
10
and 1.
Spalding.
And for...
And Virgin Australia. Thanking all those sponsors for their wonderful contribution. It's heating up. We're getting to that midsection of the season. We've also got the All-Star game coming up on the 22nd of December. Adelaide fans, in fact fans all over Australia, get out there and purchase your tickets, because this is going to be a mighty game with the three-point shootout competition, the slam dunk competition. It's just going to be a real fun event. So we want to see you there, and jump on the website and purchase your tickets. We look forward to your company a little later on in the week when we tackle all the issues in Ticket Off. And don't forget the NBL pre-game show that's coming out on Friday. Until then, on the #1 podcast in the universe, and it's called It Goes